Gabe Elton with the Austin Report, sitting in for Charlie McGrath of Wide Awake News on the one and only Rinse Radio Network. Today is Wednesday, October the 1st, 2014. I've got a jam-packed show for you tonight. I brought several exciting articles of information as well as an exciting special with me here to the show that I will give out the details of shortly. First of all, let's have a look at today's trading out there in the financial markets. The Dow ended the day down again, another 238 points. It's currently back below the magical $17,000 or 17,000 point number, while the NASDAQ was down 71 points and the S&P was down as well and currently sits below 2,000. Gold and silver rebounded in trading today. Gold ended up about $9. Silver ended up about 12 cents. However, both gold and silver traded higher than where they ended up the day. And in fact, they've been giving up some of those gains in after hours. But gold traded as high as $1,220 today, and it currently sits at $1,213 per ounce, while silver traded as high as $17.42 and currently sits at around $17.14. So this is my first show in 30 days or so. I'm so happy to be back in the captain's chair here on this broadcast, sitting in for Wide Awake, or Charlie McGrath of Wide Awake News, and once again on the Rinse Radio Network. You can expect to hear from me from here on out twice a month. In fact, it'll be every other Wednesday to be exact. For you first-time listeners that may not have heard me, my name is Gabe Elton. I'm the sales manager of Austin Rare Coin and Bullion. I've been a guest host, or a guest and a host on the Charlie McGrath Show over the last 4 years or so. And I've been in the precious metals industry for over 15 years. I've been here at Austin Rare Coin and Bullion for more than a decade. Austin Rare Coins and Bullion has been around since 1989. And I can't say that I've seen it at all, but I've seen a lot over these last 15 years in the industry. I was selling gold when gold was $250 an ounce. It's like the old Judge song, I was country when country wasn't cool. And that's basically me in the precious metals industry. Silver was $4.15 whenever I first started in the business. So, like I said, I haven't seen it all, but I've seen a lot, and I will be sharing some of that knowledge with you here tonight. I personally, and one of the reasons why you haven't heard me in 30 days or so is because I'm just back from an 8-day excursion in the backcountry of the mountains of Colorado on a backpack wilderness archery hunt. Over those 8 days, I lived entirely off of what I could carry in on my back. In my backpack. Of course, it takes a lot of gear and I guess experience. This is my third year in a row to do it. And over those 8 days, I hiked over 58 miles and had some very close encounters with elk. Some of them were as close as 10 to 25 yards away. In fact, I drew my bow twice to shoot an animal, and both times was busted. One time the elk saw me. The next time he smelled me. Both times they bolted off, but I tell you, the memories and exhilaration that you get from getting that close to the animal or the quarry that you're hunting, that kind of stuff will last a lifetime. But I wanted to point that out because, the knowledge and experience that someone gains from doing an 8-day excursion into the backcountry, being at least 4 to 5 miles from the nearest road, with everything that you need on your back, is priceless. It really should be mandatory for everyone, especially the unplugging effect and getting away from the technology and the cell phones that had no cell service. And, of course, there was no wireless internet. And the only water that I drank was filtered from a mountain stream. And I tell you, you unplug like that for 8 days and things start to crystallize for you a little better than when you're in the hubbub of everyday life, especially in a big city. So really did help re-energize me. And like I said, I think it should be mandatory for everyone, but especially preppers. If you have a bug out bag, you need to get out there and see what you really do need in that bag and what you can do without in that bag, and realize how heavy it can be if you have to carry it, 5 or 6 miles from the truck or car on your back, and really if you are able to do that or not. And I think a couple of trips out there will get you dialed in to where you know what is necessary and what is not. And I guarantee you that your pack will be a lot smaller your second or third trip than it was on your first trip. But enough about me. Let's get into these gold and silver markets so that we can attempt to make sense out of something that makes no sense at all. Markets are completely dislocated. I'm talking about gold and silver. Completely dislocated from reality. They simply do not match up. And I'm here to tell you, and I've studied this for a long time, these are times where fortunes can be made. And it's not for the faint of heart. In fact, as I'm going to share with you a little later, and some of the most ardent supporters of gold and silver are giving up hope and throwing up their hands in the air and thinking that they're wearing a dunce cap for buying gold and silver in the first place, and wondering why they missed out on the huge gains that could be found in the paper stock markets. But when that happens is when fortunes can be made, because people that take advantage of other people who have falsely been driven out of the market, those are the ones who make the money. Those are the ones who move the market, and those are the ones who end up reaping all of the benefits. So silver demand is through the roof, yet the prices are getting crushed. It makes no sense. All of the data that I see tells a totally different story. If all that you're looking at to determine whether or not this country and the world is in economic turmoil, if all that you use to determine whether or not we have the biggest economic catastrophe on our doorstep is the price of gold and silver or the value of the current stock market, well, you're going to be the last to know when things change, because everything that we're seeing points to a major, major catastrophe where gold and silver should increase substantially based on the data that we're seeing. However, as you all know, that's not happening. So the demand is through the roof, but prices are getting crushed. I just received a notice today, in fact, about an hour and a half before this show, from the Canadian Mint. They were notifying dealers that their allocation program is back in place. So an allocation program is just a fancy way to say silver maple leafs are being rationed. They are being rationed. We were updated about this today. This always happens when you have a huge price drop and people realize the bargain that's currently being offered, and the mints are unable to keep up with demand. However, it's normally the U.S. Mint that leads the pack in this. In this particular case, the Canadian Mint is the first one to let us know that their allocation program is back in place. So they are now rationing silver maple leaves. So anytime the mints aren't able to, where supply cannot meet demand, what they do is they instate this allocation program where you as a dealer might have an order for, let's say, 50,000 ounces of silver. And then when delivery time comes around, that mint might tell you, we're sorry, your allocation for this order is only 20,000 ounces. And so what happens is premiums begin to rise. I remember back in 2008, silver had fallen from $23 all the way down to $9 an ounce. However, I would have gladly paid anyone $6 over spot for silver American Eagles. At the time when silver was $9 an ounce, we were paying $15 an ounce to buy, not to sell, to buy silver Eagles. We were selling them for around $19. And silver was at $9 an ounce. And that is what we're beginning to see is when silver is allocated, When dealers aren't able to get an entire order, premiums begin to rise and the delays begin. So I was informed today that 2414 Canadian silver maple leafs are now delayed 3 to 4 weeks. And when that starts to happen, premium starts to rise, and it's almost always a sure sign that you're very close to a bottom in gold and silver. Meanwhile, you have economic data that myself, you have other hosts, probably many of you listening, have been trying to warn others about what is coming. Everything that we have ever said is being confirmed all around us. Yet people still question if they're doing the right thing by buying gold and silver because the prices continue to fall. You know, you might have heard of these out of the ordinary events that can send markets tumbling. People call them a black swan. You might have heard that term. There are currently so many black swans flying around that you can barely see the sky. We are in the midst of a global pandemic. Ebola has now entered the United States. We've got the people that we depend on to keep these diseases from spreading seem to be doing everything in their power to help it spread. All of the normal protocol and procedure that hospitals and emergency personnel are supposed to follow have been broken. In fact, they're doing everything that they shouldn't do. And it almost seems as if this is another false flag of the, I guess you could say, New World Order, for lack of a better term. Food inflation. You know, all of us have been saying for years that food prices are going to go through the roof. Well, they are. Prices on many staple items have doubled over the last 5 years. You know, we always said that there would be another world war on the horizon as the, I guess, end times, and that's not necessarily where I believe we're headed, but I would say the global catastrophe, as the global catastrophe begins, that we would see a world war, another world war. Well, that can't be denied any longer. We have Russia and Ukraine. You know, that's been out of the news lately. It seems we have to move on to ISIS. It seems that we have to now talk about Ebola, but nothing's been settled over there in the Ukraine. We have countries like Sierra Leone and Liberia who are dealing with this Ebola pandemic. Their countries are crashing and crumbling before our eyes. We have the ISIS issue, and we're now dropping bombs in Syria, Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, many other African countries. And so as a result, the world continues to move away from the dollar. And as I have said, you know, the IMF, the World Bank, and now the BRICS Bank, they all want their currencies to be the next world reserve currency. The one thing that none of them want, and the one thing that isn't in the conversation, doesn't matter if you listen to the International Monetary Fund, doesn't matter if you listen to the World Bank, it doesn't matter if you listen to the BRICS Bank. What's not in the conversation is that the U.S. dollar continuing to be the world reserve currency. And that's something else that many of us, and probably many of you, have been warning about for years, is that this is all going to come to an end. The days of the dollar being the supreme world currency is going to come to an end. It came to an end years ago as far as U.S. travelers being able to travel to foreign countries. And, you know, I remember when I was a kid, people used to say, you know, don't buy that nice camera here. You could take U.S. dollars to Japan and buy that camera for pennies on the dollar if you were traveling through there. Because the dollar was the king, and it totally dominated on the world stage. Well, it hasn't been dominant for at least 5 to 7 years. That ended a long time ago. But the official dethroning of the United States dollar as the world reserve currency is happening right in front of our eyes, just as many of us have been warning about for years. Yet, the price of gold and silver are not going through the roof. And so many of us, not myself, but many of the people that I talk to feel that they're going to miss out on being vindicated, that everything that they said all along was right. Well, just because if you measure whether or not what you said was right based on where gold and silver are trading at today, you're missing the boat, because everything else that we have always said is happening, and it's being confirmed in droves, and it's all around us. So, like I said earlier, you will be the last to know. If you judge economic certainty, if you judge economic growth based on a high stock market price and a low gold and silver price, you're going to be the last to know when it changes. And it is changing right in front of us. So you take all these data points together and all the things that we've been warning about for years. The dollar remains at a 4-year high. Silver's sitting at a 4-year low. And as a result, you have people losing faith. Even the most ardent supporters of gold and silver are, like I said earlier, throwing their hands in the air. I have a client recently passed away, God bless his soul, mid-70s. He had been a client of mine for about 8 or 9 years. And in fact, I was a pallbearer at his funeral. And it turned out to be a very good friend of mine. And this guy has been preaching to tell people to buy gold and silver since the 1960s. In fact, this gentleman had a seat on the New York Stock Exchange, very influential. He is the person that brought the plans to the Hunt brothers to corner the silver market in the 1960s. I have the report that he put together and presented to them. He is from Dallas, and he actually had an office in the same building as the Hunts, and got to know them very well. And he started a company back then called the American Silver Institute, in which he brought the proposal to the Hunt brothers and gave them the idea to corner the silver market. The reason why I tell you that is to tell you this. Even he, during the last couple of months of his death, and I've even talked about it on this show, was beginning to lose faith in gold and silver. People start to get disenchanted because, especially the older gentleman and gentlewoman, is because they want this to happen in their lifetime. Everything that they've been seeing and saying and warning about for years and years and years, they feel like, let's go ahead and get this going. Let's go ahead and let this happen, because they want to be a part of it and go through it in their lifetime. Well, I can understand the urgency. However, it's the wrong way of looking at it. And I was telling him, and I've had, in fact, I had a very similar conversation with another client today that felt the same way. He was in his 70s as well. And everything that they've always been warning about is happening. It's happening right here in front of you. And it's being confirmed everywhere. But yet they bet everything, not bet everything, but they left everything based on a gold and silver price as being the judge of whether or not they were right or wrong. And I'm here to tell you guys, you're right. Everything that you've been doing for the last decade or the last 5 years, or like in the case of my client that recently passed away, for the last 40 years is being vindicated all around you. But the only thing that isn't is the gold and silver price. And I'm here to tell you, I think that this is coming. When the biggest supporters of gold and silver start to lose faith, I can promise you we are very, very close to a bottom. It's funny because the dollar's at a 4-year high, silver's at a 4-year low. So what does that mean? It means that it's the best time in 4 years to buy silver. So in the midst of the best time in 4 years to buy silver, I'm fielding calls of people worried about whether or not they're going to lose everything and whether or not they should sell their silver. And they're being shaken out. And if you guys have heard of the term shakeout, that is what this is in its purest form. And you have a shakeout happens when moneyed interest drive down the price of an asset so low that even the strongest hands begin to sell it. And that is what we're seeing. I will come back on the backside of this commercial and finish that thought and tell you about our special that I brought to the show tonight. See you on the backside of the commercial here.
The word is out. GetTheT.com. People are waking up to all natural products that help your health. GetTheT.com is the web address to optimum health naturally. Life Change Tea is not just green tea. It is a blend of 8 herbs, specially blended to work and help with your digestive tract. When your stomach feels good, you feel good. Get rid of the yuck that stores up in your colon. Lose some weight naturally. Feel good and enhance your energy. All natural, no caffeine, and it tastes great. Don't wait. Order now at GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Or you can call us at 928-308-0408. 928-308-0408. Tired of the fear of health loss and sickness? Give your immune system some love. Log on to GetTheT.com. Life's too short to worry and fear. It's time to smile at your doctors naturally. GetTheT.com.
This is Richard Ostro, owner for Carnivora Research International. In 1985, former President Ronald Reagan requested that Carnivora be sent directly to the White House from Europe, where it was manufactured at the time, effectively making him the first American to use Carnivora. He used it successfully for a serious immune challenge, which we are prohibited from mentioning in the United States. I would like to add that he used Carnivora approximately 8 years prior to the onset of his Alzheimer's condition, for those of you inadvertently connecting the two events. Visit us at carnivora.com, now used in 27 countries around the world. Carnivora instinctively seeks out abnormal cells only that don't belong in the body without harming a single normal cell. 100% pure, natural, and harmless to humans and animals. Call 1-866-VENUS-FLY. That's 1-866-VENUS-FLY, or visit carnivora.com. Your immune system will thank you.
Scientists in England have succeeded in stabilizing the time-honored substance in garlic that destroys harmful bacteria, viruses, molds, yeast, and fungus. This all-natural microbe killer is called Allison C, and it's now available to you in 100% vegetarian capsules only on the New Earth page at rense.com. This powerful broad-spectrum antimicrobial agent is harmless to friendly bacteria and has been concentrated to equal an astonishing 35 cloves of garlic in each vegetarian capsule. Think about it. The antibacterial, antiviral strength of 35 odorless cloves of garlic in just one capsule. Allison C is so effective it even destroys superbug MRSA in test after test. Allison C is truly an incredible advance in natural medicine, and with the threats of bacterial and viral diseases and pandemics growing, no home should be without it. Learn more and order Allison C on the New Earth page at rense.com.
All right, Gabe Elton here, back on Charlie McGrath, one and only Rinse Radio Network, I should say, sitting in for Charlie McGrath on the one and only Rinse Radio Network. So before we left, we touched on a shakeout. What exactly is a shakeout? Well, a shakeout happens when you have moneyed interest that drive down the price of an asset so low that even the strongest hands begin to sell it. And I can tell you from personal experience, that is exactly what I'm seeing. What it does, it gives an opportunity for those people in the know. They can take advantage of a dislocated market. And those investors who have been fleeced to sell at artificially low prices, they get taken advantage of as well. What a shakeout does is it triggers sell orders, normally on paper exchanges like SLV or GLD or the COMEX, where you already have a falling price that begins to feed upon itself. And then that begins a cascading effect. A telltale sign of a shakeout is when you have prices falling in the face of economic ruin. And I'm talking about precious metals prices falling in the face of economic ruin. And the movements begin to defy logic. And this is exactly what we are seeing in gold and silver. Current prices are defying logic. However, when you start to see these strong hands starting to sell, that's exactly what we're seeing here. You can almost bet that the bottom is near, that the shakeout is nearly over, and that a strong rebound is to be expected. And that is exactly what I'm seeing. The data does not match up with the price movement. When that happens is when fortunes are made. And that I can promise you, and I'll explain that to you here in a second. First of all, let me get to this special. We're going to offer 10 brand new 2014 Silver Eagles for just $199 delivered. Now, you can pick up 2 of those, which would give you a complete mint roll tube, 20 ounces of 2014 Silver Eagles. You're looking at $398 to your door. Now, you do have to call our main number, which is 1-800-928-6468. It's only while supplies last, and it does expire on Friday, October 10th, whatever comes first. So, $199 to your door for 10 Silver Eagles, $398 to your door for 20 Silver Eagles. I don't think you're going to find this for less anywhere in the country. You do have to call us directly at 1-800-928-6468. Again, I'm Gabe Elton with Austin Rare Coin and Bullion. You can visit our website at www.austincoins.com. You can also visit our YouTube page. From our main page, we have a learning center there. We've got gold and silver price charts with histories there. A huge resource of information. So please visit our site, give us a call, take advantage of this special, because the shakedown is nearly over. And as I say, the data that we are seeing does not correlate with the price movements that we're seeing. Look at it this way. A record amount, over $800 million, was invested last year in 2014 Silver Eagles alone. Now, that's $800 million. That doesn't include bars. It doesn't include rounds. It doesn't include backdated Silver Eagles. It doesn't include junk silver. It doesn't include maple leafs, Philharmonics, Chinese pandas, Australian kangaroos, Australian kookaburras. But just in 2014, over $800 million was put into Silver Eagles, which was a record, 43 million ounces. And it's more than $200 million more that went into the same Silver Eagles the last time that silver traded at these levels, which was back in 2010. Yet the price continues to fall. We have a situation where 2014, and by the way, I said last year, they were actually 2013 Silver Eagles last year, but in 2014, it looks like we're on pace to break records. In fact, in September alone, they minted more than 4 million ounces of silver American Eagles, which was more than double the amount that they produced in August. How could that coincide with a falling price? It can't. And that is when fortunes are made. Last year, 2013 marked the first time that more money was invested into Silver Eagles than was invested into Gold Eagles. There was about $100 million more money spent on Silver Eagles last year than there were Gold Eagles. But let's just say that the ratio was 1-to-1. The price of silver versus gold is 70-to-1. Yet the amount of money going into Gold Eagles versus Silver Eagles is 1-to-1. How can the price be that dislocated, and how does that make sense? It doesn't. And markets can be taken advantage of when they don't Makes sense. And the point here is that markets are often wrong. Markets are often short-sighted. And that is when these dislocations become the biggest and the greatest. And when that happens, fortunes are made. A lot of people don't know this, but there were more millionaires created during the Great Depression than at any other time in history. And the reason for that is because people were able to take advantage of markets that were dislocated. And this is exactly what we're seeing in gold and silver. And I'll say that again. There were more millionaires created during the Great Depression than during any other time in history, because markets were dislocated. And that is currently what I think I'm seeing, and it's evidence all around us. You look at the world events, the things that are going on in the world versus the price movements in gold and silver, and I would have to say it's the most dislocated market on the planet. And silver happens to be probably the most undervalued asset on the planet. Tell me another asset that you can buy for half the price it was trading for in 1980. I don't think you'll be able to. And I'm going to go on to some important articles here that kind of back up everything that I've been saying. I don't know if you saw it or not, but John Rubino, via his blog, the Dollar Collapse blog. In fact, this was reposted on Zero Hedge. And it says reports of individuals snapping up near record numbers of gold and silver coins are coming in from around the world. And Reuters reported that U.S. Mint American Eagle gold coin sales set to rise sharply in September. And it says the U.S. Mint has sold nearly 50,000 ounces of American Gold Eagle coins so far in September, almost double its total in August, as a sharp pullback in gold prices and geopolitical tensions boosted interest for physical products from retail investors. With only 6 business days left until the end of September, sales of American Eagle gold bullion coins made for investors were 46,000 ounces, up 84% from August, which produced 25,000 ounces. And it goes on to say that record highs in U.S. equities also prompted some retail investors to buy precious metal products to diversify their portfolios. So you could go on to Germany, and German bullion dealers report major increase in sales. Bullion dealers from all regions report that gold sales in the German bullion trade market surged since last week. Suppressed prices for gold and silver are obviously considered buying rates by German investors. The German precious metals trade reports a surge in sales. For about a week, we record considerably increased turnover again, which is now on previous year's level, so it doubled compared to recent months. Renee Lehman from the internet dealer Moonsland in Dresden told Gold Reporter. We can confirm that customer demand has considerably increased in the recent days, said Dominic Kuchman, CEO of Edelmetall in Rheinstetten. And it goes on, and they have several other quotes. So it's surging here in the States. It's surging in Germany. What about in Australia? Well, the Perth Mint gold and silver bullion sales surge in August. Australian sales of bullion gold and silver surged in August after falling to a 3-month low in July. New figures from the Perth Mint of Australia show. And it's happening all the way around the world. The demand is through the roof. Prices are stagnant. The market is dislocated. Take advantage of it. I'll see you guys after the break.
When you think of getting old, what comes to your mind? Spending the last years of your life in a nursing home? Staring out a window? Medicated to keep you docile? Not able to recognize your own kids? Suffering with some dreaded disease until you die all alone? Well, think again. One of the premier doctors in the world, Dr. James Forsythe, wrote the book Anti-Aging Cures. life-changing secrets to reverse the effects of aging, your key to the real fountain of youth. And Suzanne Summers, the perpetual face of eternal youth, wrote the foreword. As mentioned in the book, Royal Velvet is the most cost-effective, easiest, and complete way to reverse the effects of aging. It's true. So, do you want glowing skin, less wrinkles, thicker hair, less gray hair, your hormones balanced, improved memory, a toned physique, greater energy, less pain and stiffness, as well as benefits too numerous to name? Go to RoyalVelvetNow.com. Click on the rinse icon in the upper right-hand corner, and within a couple of days, you can be on the path to youthful living. RoyalVelvetNow.com. Your life will never be the same.
Charlie McGrath of WideAwakeNews.com here with a question from my friends at Austin Rare Coins and Bullion. What do they know that we don't? Insiders and a who's who list of elite have made it crystal clear that we are headed for catastrophe, putting out warning after warning, urging people to batten down the hatches. Billionaire George Soros has recently been dumping stocks and at the same time acquiring millions in gold. In fact, in a recent interview, he was quoted as saying, "I'm not here to cheer you up. The situation is as serious and difficult as I've experienced in my career." Out of control government deficit spending and a Federal Reserve that's only solution seems to be print more fiat currency will lead to a weaker dollar and massive inflation on necessity items such as energy and food. If you have wealth to protect, please visit my friends at Austin Rare Coins and Bullion. Gabe, Elton, and the folks at Austin Rare Coins and Bullion have many Wide Awake News customers because they're honest, they're fair, and they won't sell you paper promises or product they do not have. Call Gabe Elton at 800-552-4109. That number again, 800-552-4109, or visit him online at austincoins.com.
Make a promise, take a vow, trust your feelings, it's easy now. Understand the voice within and feel a change.
All right, Gabe Elton with the Austin Report, sitting in for Charlie McGrath of Wide Awake News on the one and only Rinse Radio Network. That is the last commercial for the show, and like I said, I do have some jam-packed information here for you. A couple of more articles to cover. Wanted to remind you of our special, which is 10 Silver Eagles, 2014 Silver Eagles, delivered to your door for $199. Now, you can double that up and get a mint roll of 20. That would be $398 to your door. You would have to call our main number, which is 1-800-928-6468, and the offer ends either whatever comes first, as supplies last, or by next Friday, which is October the 10th. So we were talking about how the market's dislocated, things don't make sense. Well, I learned in school that supply and demand are the determining factor of price. If supply falls faster than demand, or slow, or as demand is rising, a new higher price would have to be established in order to find an equilibrium for supply and demand. Well, all that I'm seeing is demand is going through the roof while supply is stagnant or falling. But the prices don't reflect that. And again, and I think this is going to be the title of tonight's show, this is when fortunes can be made. You just have to be able to realize it and take advantage of it. And if you're only going to judge that based on where the stock market is or where the gold and silver prices are, you're going to be the last to know. And U.S. Mint American Eagle gold sales rise sharply in September. German bullion dealers report major increases in sales. We left off talking about Australia. Australian sales of bullion, gold, and silver surged in August after falling to a 3-month low in July. New figures from the Perth Mint of Australia show. August sales of Perth Mint gold coins and gold bars at 36,369 ounces rallied 44.9% from July and jumped 19.5% from the same time last year. Gold sales were the highest since June. Sales of Perth Mint silver coins and silver bars at 818,000 ounces in August advanced 41.7% from the prior month and grew 18.5% from August 2013. And so China, let's look at China. China imports more gold Indian demand set to climb. This is from Reuters. And they say, with gold trading at a key psychological level of $1,200 per ounce, markets are keenly watching physical demand in Asia, which is the top consuming region, to see if it could lend support to prices. And, of course, it is lending support, but the prices aren't following. The physical volumes have been high this month compared to August. I would say imports could be at least 30% higher than last month, said a trader with one of the 15 importing banks in China. Russia boosts gold reserves by $400 million. They're currently holding the most gold that Russia has ever held since 1993. It says Russia added about 9.4 metric tons of gold valued at $400 million of reserves. This is from Bloomberg. In July, as it expanded holdings for a fourth consecutive month to the highest in at least 2 decades. The country's stockpile, which is the fifth biggest, increased to 35.5 million ounces. So you look around, demand is going through the roof all the way around the world. Prices should be doing the same. And as the commenter of this article that was posted on Zero Hedge, and I don't know if Zero Hedge added this comment or if it came directly from John Rubino, but it says, there's no guarantee that this buying, encouraging as it seems, is anything more than a blip. But in the aggregate, it does seem like a lot of buyers, old and new, are finding current prices to be attractive. And this is the key, and what I've been trying to transfer to you guys throughout this entire show is that he says that's how bottoms form and new bull markets begin. And that's the point, is being able to recognize when you are at a bottom. And another important article was recently posted by Zero Hedge. It says, why is China hoarding gold? Alan Greenspan explains. So of all people, Alan Greenspan, writing for our favorite publication for the Council on Foreign Relations, Foreign Affairs, of course I say that tongue-in-cheek, wrote an article explaining why he thinks China is buying gold. And I think the most important part of the article, I'm going to touch on it here in a second, is something that he touches on in his article. People always look to the U.S. dollar as the backstop. When bad things happen, people go into U.S. Treasury bonds and the U.S. dollar thinking that it's good as gold. But it's not. And what people are finally starting to ask the question is, what's going to backstop the U.S. dollar? What's going to backstop U.S. Treasuries? Because there's nothing else out there that's going to back up the dollar and the Treasuries. And so the rest of the world who look at the dollar and U.S. Treasuries as a safe haven are beginning to ask, what's going to back up that? What's going to backstop the dollar? And the answer, very simply, especially for countries, is gold. For you, it might be silver. But for countries, it's gold. And Alan Greenspan starts off to say, this is a very opening paragraph. He says, if China were to convert a relatively modest part of its $4 trillion foreign exchange reserves into gold, the country's currency could take on an unexpected strength in today's international financial system. It would be a gamble, of course, for China to use part of its reserves to buy enough gold bullion to displace the United States from its position as the world's largest holder of gold, but the penalty for being wrong in terms of lost interest in the cost of storage would be modest. For the rest of the world, gold prices would certainly rise, and he says, but only during the period of accumulation. So you could go on in the article, and he goes on to say, if the dollar or any other fiat currency were universally acceptable at all times, central banks would see no need to hold any gold. The fact that they do indicates that such currencies are not a universal substitute. That's very important. a very important point that he's pointing out, because he knows that people are starting to realize that there's nothing to backstop the dollar, and that if any fiat currency were acceptable at all times, that central banks wouldn't need to hold gold. And the fact that they do indicates that such currencies are not a universal substitute. He goes on to say, of the 30 advanced countries that report to the IMF, only 4 hold no gold as part of the reserve balances. Indeed, at market prices, the gold held by central banks of developed economies was worth $762 billion in 2013 and comprised of 10.3% of their overall reserve balances. And he goes on to say, if in the words of the British economist John Maynard Keynes, gold were a barbarous relic, central banks around the world would not have so much of an asset whose rate of a return, including storage costs, is negative. And he goes on to say of a case back in 1976 where he participated as a chair on the Council of Economic Advisors. And he was on there with Treasury Secretary William Simon and then Federal Reserve Chair Arthur Burns. They met with Gerald Ford to discuss a recommendation of Simon's. Simon wanted to sell off some of the U.S.'s gold. And Simon, it says, whereas Simon, following the economist Milton Friedman's view at the time, argued that gold no longer served any useful monetary purpose. Burns, on the other hand, argued that gold was the ultimate crisis backstop to the dollar. And so that's the one thing that I think is the most important thing out of this entire article by Greenspan is, what's the backstop to the dollar? Everyone looks to the dollar as the backstop. Well, what backstops the backstop? And that's gold. And if you haven't figured it out, and it's precious metals, silver, and if you haven't figured it out by now, and even if you have, there's never been a better time in 4 years than to begin buying gold and silver or to add to your holdings. And you know, recently as 2014, this is back to the Greenspan article, the European central banks put out a statement that simply said that gold remains an important element of global monetary reserves. And China is getting all that they can, so much that Alan Greenspan is writing about it in the CFR's magazine, or newspaper, if you will, called Foreign Affairs. The next several articles are from Michael Snyder. If you guys haven't visited the economiccollapselog.com, Michael Snyder is on top of it. In fact, I try to take articles and sort of boil them down so I don't feel like I'm reading to a classroom of students. But his articles are very hard to do that with because almost every word in them needs to be pointed out. And in case you missed it, he put out an article yesterday, or maybe perhaps the day before yesterday, that really blew my mind. And it said the U.S. government, the headline on the economiccollapseblog.com is the U.S. government is borrowing $8 trillion per year. And as he says, you know, that headline sounds completely ridiculous, but it's true. And what he did is actually he's expanding on an article from CNS News, but he talks about how the federal government are using these debt instruments in order to borrow money on short-term repayment plans, and that, of course, saves them money in the long run, but they have to continually roll them over. And so he says, as I wrote about recently, the U.S. national debt has increased by more than $1 trillion in the fiscal year 2014. But that does not count the huge amounts of U.S. Treasury securities that the federal government must redeem each year. When these debt instruments hit their maturity date, the U.S. government must pay them off. This is done by borrowing more money to pay off the previous debts. In fiscal year 2013, redemptions of U.S. Treasury securities totaled $7.5 trillion, and the new debt totaling $8.3 trillion was issued. And he says the final numbers for fiscal year 2014 are likely to be significantly higher than that. So why does the government have so much debt coming due each year? Well, in recent years, government officials figured out that they could save a lot of money on interest payments by borrowing over shorter time frames. For example, it costs the government far more to borrow money for 10 years than it does for 1 year. And make sure to give us a call. Check out this article. The U.S. government is borrowing about $8 trillion a year at economiccollapse.com. Visit our website, austincoins.com. Call us for the special at 1-800-928-6468. Thank you, guys. See you in 2 weeks.
Times like this you pray, but a bomb blew the mosque up yesterday. There's bombs on the buses, bikes, roads, inside your market, your shops, your clothes. My dad, he's got a lot of fear, I know, but enough pride inside not to let that show. My brother had a book he would hold with pride, a little red cover with a broken spine on the back. He hand wrote a quote inside: when the rich wage war, it's the poor who die. Meanwhile, the leader just talks away, stuttering and mumbling the nightly news to replay. The rest of the world watching at the end of the day, both scared and angry, like what did he say?
You have been chosen, yes, you, to discover for yourself what thousands have already experienced, the most life-changing health product in the world. It's called Royal Velvet, and there's nothing else like it. Royal Velvet users testify to receiving hundreds of benefits, from reversing the effects of aging to mental clarity, as well as noticeably improved sleep, energy, libido, overall health, and so much more, including saving lots of money. This is the real deal, that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that you will regret if you don't act upon it. Honestly, there is an extremely limited amount of raw material, making it available only to a select few, a very select few. So find out why you have been chosen. Go to RoyalVelvetNow.com, click on the rinse icon in the upper right-hand corner for an incredible surprise. Oh yeah, if you place your order before we run out of them, you will receive the eye-popping but simple-to-read book that tells you how to live in divine health, and it's free. RoyalVelvetNow.com.
In 2007, one man, Mike Dillard, made 5 predictions which forecasted the 2008 economic crisis and the pending Eurozone collapse. 3 brand new, shocking, must-watch videos with predictions for the coming year. www.the3videos.com. Over the past year, Mike Dillard has helped thousands of ordinary people create and recover wealth by tapping into the black box investing strategies the big banks don't want you to know about. www.the3videos.com. As the European banking system implodes and governments collapse at breakneck speeds, the next 12 months will be the most anticipated and important months in modern human history. This will make 2008 look like a walk in the park. Everyone will be affected. Go to www.the3videos.com now. Learn how to prepare your family and prosper during the global financial collapse.
You're listening to the Rense Radio Network, nationwide and worldwide on the net and at rense.com.